right, so today we have with us Ian Watts. He is the CEO of Employee Success Company. Hey, Ian, how are you
I
today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for coming on to our podcast and learn for my HR course. So, give us a little background about yourself, how you got into success coaching and things like that, and your just kind of your journey into HR.
Okay, I will take the longer route if you'll permit. So I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit, and in many ways my story is somewhat familiar to some minority boys and girls, not all, that grow up in urban areas in that my father was in prison. My mother, my brother, and I, who is 4 years my senior, we all lived on welfare. So as you can imagine, Sandra, I wanted to get as far and as fast away from that reality as possible. And I saw entrepreneurship as a way out. And because I naively thought at the time that money was the answer to all of my challenges, I wanted to be a millionaire and I wanted to get there by 30. Well,
Hmm.
I actually achieved my goal 4 years ahead of what I was shooting for, but the bottom fell completely out of my first business.
Mm.
And my wife and I jokingly say that '06 was a good year. And we say that tongue in cheek because all in 2006, the bottom fell out of our business. I was actually on an international missions trip, expecting to come back to Financial Easy Street, learning
Hmm.
that the sky was falling.
Oh no.
So that happened. Then we had six close deaths in our family, and then she became deathly ill with the birth of our first daughter. So it was a challenging season. Um, but what was interesting about that season is before the bottom fell out, I all of the things that I thought would make my heart pant and the things that would help me fight against the pain of running from poverty. I guess that's the best way of saying it. I found that money and stuff and things didn't do it. But what it did do is it really began to crystallize my personal mission, which is to build businesses to bless the world and also to be what I didn't see. Because during my first foray into entrepreneurship, I was looking for mentorship. And for whatever reason, it just did not happen. And because of that, it birthed in me a burning desire to
Hmm.
become what I did not have. So for the past 2 decades, to draw this to a close, because I'm sure this may be a bit longer than what you anticipated, but for the
Oh
past two
no.
decades, I have been coaching and training entrepreneurs from early stage to even several multi-billion-dollar corporations. But in the last 2.5 to 3 years, I had a deep conviction that based upon the mission that I have, I needed to start serving larger audiences. So that was the birth of Employee Success Company. So that's what brings me to what we do now, which is providing employee engagement, performance, and retention services.
So tell us a little bit about when just kind of your coaching career, and I know the three things that you're focusing on, and when companies really want better performance, how do they balance that with getting people to stay? Because I know, and
Mhm.
this is somewhat generational, but we see a lot more employees now are committed to the occupation, but not necessarily to the organization, right? And so
Yeah.
how do those two things work together, performance and retention?
Yeah. So I would say they're directly connected,
Hmm.
not competing at all. So
Hmm.
the key to both discretionary effort, which leads to better performance, and the key to greater retention, keeping your best people, is actually to create high engagement.
Okay.
That's the trick for both of it. That's the secret, if you
Mm.
will. So there's a phrase that's often used but rarely embraced, unfortunately, for too many businesses. And the phrase is that engagement equals EBITDA, right? So this is not HR fluff. When your
Mhm.
people are more engaged, not only do you keep them longer, but they give you so much more of what they have, in particular, if they appreciate the work. But it doesn't have to be the work necessarily, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Gallup reports that companies at the higher end of their engagement surveys, they are
Hmm.
21% more profitable. So, in fact, engagement does equal EBITDA. So,
Hmm.
engagement is the secret to both higher performance and getting your best people to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that personally. I've seen it in, people that I've managed as well, but it's just if they're engaged, they're going to definitely be more productive. So, um,
Agreed.
let's talk about when they do decide to leave. Why do good employees leave? Those who seem to be engaged, successful on the surface, why do they end up leaving, and what can we do, if anything, to prevent that?
Sure. I think there are three primary reasons why you're going to find that people leave. And what's interesting and what makes it even more challenging is that for high performers that do leave, they're
Hmm.
typically not necessarily leaving because they're not producing results. So you can find that people have checked out, yet the results are still there because they have their own personal standards. So
Hmm.
the first reason is they don't see a clear path for growth and increased responsibility.
Hmm.
High performers want to ensure that there is a what's next,
Right.
and they understand that beginning with the end in mind is really important. So if they cannot plot out on a chart the trajectory of their career path, I think that's going to be one of the things that is unsettling and causes them to leave. Secondarily,
Yeah.
a weak connection between what they're doing and personal
Mhm.
goals. So I believe this is akin to number one. When we can't bridge the gap between what I'm doing and what I ultimately want to do, there's a challenge. And then the other thing that I would say is this, though high performers don't need to be babysat, they don't need their hands held. They do need the amount of appropriate, consistent leadership attention that you would expect from any performer. I think one of the biggest challenges that leaders have is when they see a high performer, they abdicate responsibility rather than delegate. So
Hmm.
I am going to give you this, you run with it, and then you disappear for months on end.
Right.
It shows, well, you know what? Let me tell you this. The very first leadership book that I read when I was between 19 and 20 years old was John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And the
Okay.
very first law in that book is the law of the lid. So
Hmm.
you, as the leader, are the lid or the cap
Hmm.
on the organization or the team that you lead. And when high performers see that you're not a strong leader, as
Hmm.
evidenced by a number of different things, but just drawing our attention back to abdication,
Hmm.
then that's going to be one of the things that drives them out of the door. So those three things I would say are
Hmm.
what cause high performers to leave.
So just kind of following up on the first one, like not having a career path. We do talk about this a little bit in my class as well, but do you see that more with small businesses because there's not maybe as many management levels or not as many hierarchies for employees to kind of work their way through?
I do see that it's much more prevalent and much less developed in smaller companies.
Hmm.
And I think many high performers understand that. And
Sure.
in those cases, I like to see an opportunity for potentially is there equity. If it's that small where there is no formalized development and I'm a high performer, can
Hmm.
I eventually work my way into something beyond potentially just a bonus? Can I work
Hmm.
my way into a profit share opportunity?
Gotcha.
So even when it's even among small companies, there's still
Hmm.
things that if a high performer says yes,
Yeah.
that you can do to plot out a path for growth and development, especially if that means I have the opportunity to help steer the direction of the entire company, not just my small neck of the woods if I were in a larger
Hmm.
organization, and I
Hmm.
can receive some remuneration as a result that is directly tied to my efforts.
The things that leaders do, maybe they don't even realize they're doing it, that actually hurts retention and performance for their employees.
Yeah, so the thing that comes to mind, and I say it so often, and I feel like a parrot at this point, but I'll say it again, treating people like roles instead of individuals. They miss
Mhm.
the fact that they're working with human beings and
Right.
not human doings. That's
Hmm.
what's really important. And to the point that you mentioned about communication, inconsistent or unclear expectations
Hmm.
as it pertains to how we communicate with our people. That is
Yeah.
a complete turnoff. And then here's another one. Only engaging when something's wrong, right? How
Um,
frequently do I want to see you if you're my leader when the only time you like to engage with me is when it's time for you to tell me all of the things that I need to do wrong and make a connection? I'm sorry, make
mm,
a correction.
right.
I probably wouldn't want to see you that much. So those are a few things that I think drive people right out of the door. And communication is a big part of it. And that's a human issue. And I
Right.
think treating people like human beings and not just human doings, treating
Hmm.
me more than just a cog in a wheel, treating
Hmm.
me more than just a title or a position, or
Right.
as a part of a unit, as a
Or
part of a
something
team.
that's easily replaceable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
because especially in this day and age, based upon what we continue to see, Meta, 8,000 jobs. We saw what Oracle did. We saw what Block did. That's just on the tech side. This is
Mhm.
happening all over. Tech is just much more prevalent,
Right.
and it's much more salacious for the headlines. But the reality is, when people go through this, it's not just the people who leave that are affected, it's the people who
Mhm.
stay. And these people are wondering, engagement plummets during layoffs, even if you make the
Right.
cut to stay, by the way.
The
They're wondering,
survivors.
am
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
safe?
Hmm.
And
Am I
am
next?
I really valued?
Yeah.
We have to make sure that people know that you are valued more than what you can do, but simply because of who you are, and treat
Hmm.
people like
Hmm.
they're actually people.
So one of the things that I've noticed over the years is, the giving feedback and kind of the appraisal process has started to, people are starting to do more continuous feedback and not necessarily
Yes.
the annual evaluation. So, and I think one of the main reasons for that is because you'll see engagement go down after these feedback sessions, and you'll see performance actually go down. So how can we, talk about performance without actually creating disengagement and turnover, essentially?
Often it's the case that it's not what you do, it's how you do it, how you
Mm,
communicate with people. So
hmm.
I would say effective feedback, not only should it be frequent, but it should be helpful. It should be not
Hmm.
only helpful, but encouraging. So when I think about feedback and I think about recognition, though they're closely related, I'll just separate them just for this nuance. Feedback should be frequent. Feedback provides direction,
Hmm.
and recognition reinforces behavior. So as we give feedback, we are, let me take a step back. As we give feedback, it's really important that we know not just what our goals and roles are as a part of the organization, but
Hmm.
this assumes we know what the goals are for our people, so that as we give feedback, it's always, hey, based upon what you've communicated to me, here are some adjustments that I need. And sometimes it's not about the work. Here's where it really gets tough. Often, when it's about the work in different directions, your people should take about the work itself, that, if it's done appropriately, doesn't sting as much. I think the feedback, and maybe I could be wrong, but the feedback that you're referring to is, what are the interpersonal dynamics and relational dynamics that are going on that I need you to make adjustments regarding? And
Hmm.
so, based upon that, hey, here's something that I see that you're doing, that if you did it this way, I think it might be more helpful. Or here's an observation that I have, something I want you to pay attention to, because when you do this, I believe it makes sure people feel this way. And
Hmm.
so, one of the things I think is helpful when giving feedback is to tell people the specific behaviors that they are doing, or that they should do, or they could do to
Yeah.
change the trajectory of what's going on no matter where they are. Good case in point. Don't tell someone that they should just be more polite. Like, how do I actually execute that?
Yeah.
Well, being polite could mean that when you walk into a room and you're not speaking to your employees and you hadn't seen them since yesterday, saying
Hmm.
hi and shaking their hands might be something that's helpful. Now, we're in the day and age of not COVID. What's the new virus called that the news is trying to get all up in arms about?
Oh, from the cruise ship.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
know what
people
you're talking
may,
about. Yeah.
maybe
Hmm.
you're not shaking hands, but
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
give people a hearty hello and explain what that looks like. Put a smile on your face. Make sure you
Hmm.
greet everyone. Don't just come in and sit down. Now, here's the thing. People may be doing that for a whole lot of reasons, not the least of which, I have an insecurity and I don't like being the center of attention, because
Hmm.
when I come into rooms, perhaps I just feel better shrinking. So it
Hmm.
could be for a whole lot of reasons. So getting to the bottom of those reasons and then sharing, hey, I think that first, I appreciate you sharing with me what the
Hmm.
reason for that is. So I think investigating is important. So the first thing you do is diagnose before you begin to correct. And then
Hmm.
after you've gotten some perspective, then you can tailor your response and say, all right, well, what are some things that you feel like you can try that won't cause you to jump out of your skin?
Yeah.
I think that's a helpful approach.
So, how can organizations really tell the difference between an employee who is underperforming and one who's disengaged because there's something just not working in the workplace environment?
Got it. I think we have clear distinguishing factors there. So when people are underperforming,
Hmm.
I would say that the effort is still present, but the
Hmm.
results are inconsistent. And that can often be a lack of clarity. It could be a lack of skill. It could be a resource issue. But when they're
Mhm.
disengaging, effort itself, I believe, is the problem.
Okay.
So you find that the effort is inconsistent, that the effort is declining. And that's typically an issue surrounding motivation, alignment, and then leadership connection. I think those are the ways that you can distinguish between the two.
So are there certain like red flags or signs that leaders should be looking for, retention problems or, you know,
I
I'm
love
sure you
those.
have lots.
Yeah, I
I'm
always
sure.
love that question. And allow me to preface by saying that any one of these things that I will list in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that your hair should be on fire,
Uh-huh.
right? But
Uh-huh.
if you add a couple of these together, it could be a problem. So the first one, and I love this example because it's so real and so relevant to me. So when you find that there's reduced discretionary effort,
Hmm.
where you used to have an employee that would stay 90, maybe 2 hours after everyone else had gone home, and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
without explanation, it stops. Well, that could be alarming, especially if there
Hmm.
was no conversation. Now, granted, the work didn't suffer. We just find that discretionary effort, it
Uh-huh.
seems to have stopped. Well, that in and of itself isn't necessarily a challenge. It could mean that just like me, maybe you have two boys, one in high school or two
Hmm.
girls or a combination. You have
Hmm.
kids that are in school and they run track,
Yeah.
and their track meets are so inconveniently placed before the workday, the traditional workday is ended. So my son's track meets, both of
Four
them, by the
o'clock.
way, are
Four
at
o'clock in the morning.
4:30, right? So I'm like, what part of the game is that? In any
Yeah.
event, what that means is I can't and won't allow my work to suffer. Maybe,
Yeah.
especially for knowledge workers, it's a little bit
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
if you're talking about line workers, but knowledge workers in particular,
Hmm.
maybe I'm getting up much earlier to continue
Right.
to ensure that my work is in alignment with the same standard of excellence that I've set. So that's one
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
Another one is there a decline in initiatives or idea generation? So you're sitting
Hmm.
in a weekly staff meeting and you're finding that all of a sudden, no, I take that back. Gradually, not all of a sudden. Gradually, you look up and it's been 2 weeks, and maybe one of your most creative idea persons, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
They are not responding, they're not presenting any ideas when that is traditionally what most of the team, including you as a leader, have come to appreciate about them most. Now, if you couple the first two together, then there may be smoke where there may be fire. Um,
Hmm.
Also, if you find that they are less collaborative, if you don't find that you're seeing that they are coupled with other teammates like they used to be, or maybe one of the things that your team does is pull a name out of a hat, and based upon the name that's pulled, we go do something fun for that particular name that was pulled. And they
Hmm.
seem to disengage, like they're finding reasons to not come
Not
out to have
interested.
dinner or to go
Yeah.
bowling or darts or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Then I think these are all signs that there is smoke. And here's one that I love. If you see some, if any one or a few of these starts happening, and then you start noticing that profiles are being updated on LinkedIn, it
Oh,
looks
yeah.
really, it looks a little bit more spiffy, and there's a little bit more focus on outward engagement and networking. Then I
Um,
think that those are all signs; those are indications that there could be some issues going on.
yeah, with professional social networking now, those are easy to spot, a lot easier than they necessarily used to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting. So, kind of as a future manager, or if you were going to give advice to, somebody, what would you say is the most important thing that they could do to build a team that performs well and is engaged and really wants to stay, and
Sure.
help build your organization?
Sure. Two things come to mind, and I'll park on the second one for just a bit because I think it's that important. The first thing is because we are humans, we've established that.
Hmm.
I think it would be really, really helpful, especially as we lead and manage others. I would encourage every student, every emerging leader to take a deep dive into psychology and neurobiology.
Hmm.
It's hard for us to do what's in our own best interests, right?
Right.
So here it is. None of us are perfect. We're all humans and we all fall short. But I think understanding how we can get ourselves to do what's in our own best interest is really helpful, and understanding what's going on in the head and the heart of our people so that we can engage more deeply, more
Mhm.
strategically, and more effectively would be really, really helpful. So that's the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing that I would say is you want to develop a practical framework to significantly enhance and sustain engagement. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we've done at Employee Success Company is created a framework that I call the ACTS method.
Mhm.
And the end goal of the ACTS method is to create a deep sense of reciprocity among your people.
Mhm.
And the A in the ACTS method is an acronym. It stands for aspirations, helping your people achieve their greatest goals and dreams. Now, that presupposes that you actually know the goals and dreams outside of
Effective
work of your
communication.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and most, I will say, most people are not asking those types of questions. Perhaps it feels inappropriate. Perhaps they feel ill-equipped to do anything about it. But I
Mhm.
think it's really important to help people do what has them up at night staring at the ceiling, making their heart pant. What is
Mhm.
it that makes them leap out of bed? Because most people didn't necessarily grow up dreaming about doing the job that they're doing at present under your leadership. So
Mhm.
helping them to achieve their greatest goals and dreams is really important. In addition to that, most high achievers know, and they discover, many of them wiser than I have discovered, that money and stuff and things won't make you happy.
Yeah.
So, as I share with you, I thought money was going to be the salve that I could place on the wounds that I was experiencing as a result of how I grew up. And you find that
Mhm.
money didn't do it. Some people try sex, some people try drugs. I believe that all of us, to some extent, metaphorically, have a hole in our hearts, and that's to
Mhm.
discover and demonstrate what we're uniquely called to do. So, the C in the ACTS method stands for helping your people to discover and demonstrate what they're uniquely called to do, because the challenge with just helping them achieve their goals and dreams, and there's some great work. And for just a reference point, your people can check out the Dream Manager. Just doing
Mhm.
that alone significantly enhances engagement. But a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that our lives are not concentric circles and we check our humanity at the door. We do not. So when
No.
things are not going well at home, when our kids, well, you get the point. I'll stop there. I'll come back to that. Helping your people to discover and demonstrate what they're called to do. Next, transformation. The T stands for transformation. How do I help develop you not just professionally, but personally? How do I
Mhm.
help you not just for the job that you have, but maybe for the job that you aspire to, but not just that? How do I
Mhm.
help you go home and be a better husband or be a better wife, be a better partner? How is
Mhm.
it that I can help you go home and be a better and perhaps even more loving parent? How
Mhm.
can I transform you, not just for the job or not just for work, but personally? So the first three letters in the ACTS method are really employee centric. These are
Mhm.
things that the leaders are doing or at least facilitating by perhaps bringing in a firm like mine or others to be able to help do that. The S in the ACTS method stands for support. It is akin to, is somewhat similar to what employee assistance programs aim to do, but they are
Mhm.
woefully underutilized. I've
Right.
heard some stats recently to the tune of only 10%. But
Mhm.
how is it that we can structurally build in support during the most critical moments in our people's lives? When the bottom is falling out, when perhaps there's a divorce,
Mhm.
when you had the tragic loss of a loved one, but not just for those moments. How can I build in support for exciting things like the purchase of a new house? Do we
Mhm.
send a gift basket with a card saying, welcome home? This is a significant milestone in your life, and we're so glad that you achieved it. Or what about when
Mhm.
your kids go off to college? Hey, we love your mom and dad at our company. They are amazing. We just wanted to encourage you in your academic journey. Those
Mhm.
things, I think, and that's a methodology that we created, but more broadly speaking, doing things that are such a blessing to people that they can't help but be filled with and overflowing with a deep sense of gratitude. There are a few people in my life, and then I'll close, that were so instrumental. And
Mhm.
when the bottom for me personally had fallen out, and when I had fallen on my face, and at times it felt like it was so difficult, and I didn't even know if I'd be able to make it, they stepped in to provide the support. they gave me this wonderful balance of both tough and tender love and challenging me and encouraging me to move forward and keep going. Because of how special in my life they were, by and large, there's nothing that they could call me and ask or that I could even think about without them asking that I wouldn't try to do. Imagine if we created that among our
Yeah.
people.
That
That's what I
that
would share.
reciprocity. Yeah, that reciprocity where it's like they
And it
feel
has to
so
be
valued. Yeah.
sincere. This
Right.
also presupposes that you care because, again, we can
Right.
sniff that out quickly. It
Hmm.
has to be sincere.
All right. Well, good. Well, thank you very much. This is all very informative and yeah, you said you had a lot of nuggets in there that are gonna keep me thinking. I'm like processing everything here.
I am more than willing. We can keep the dialogue going off camera, by phone, by video. Whatever I can do, just know I'm at your service. It has been more than a privilege.
Oh, we appreciate your time. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put your website at the bottom of this recording and your LinkedIn so that if students want to connect with you, then they'll have
Please.
that resource there for them. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
thank you, Ian.